Keir Starmer may have already surpassed double the duration of Liz Truss's brief premiership, but that doesn't mean his journey has been plain sailing. There's been good, but there's been very bad too. In this video, I'll unpick the privacy and civil liberties issues that dominated Sir Keir Starmer's first 100 days in power. It was just days into the new Labour administration's term when former Prime Minister Tony Blair took the opportunity to push for ID cards. 48 hours after the election result was announced, Blair penned an article in the Sunday Times saying, "In office, I believe the best solution was a system of identity so that we know precisely who has a right to be here. With, again, technology, we should move, as the world is moving, to digital ID. If not, new border controls will have to be highly effective." ID cards were a flagship policy during Tony Blair's time in power. However, his plans for a nationwide identity database were eventually binned, continuing Britain's long history of rejecting ID cards. Following Tony Blair's prompt push, the Labour government ruled out the introduction of digital ID cards. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper said ID cards were not in the party's election manifesto and added, "That's not our approach." Although the Labour government has rejected mandatory digital ID cards, they're still pushing forward with introducing a giant digital identity system, one login, for us all to access basic government services. Digital identity systems pose serious risks to rights, security, and equality. We believe that everyone should be able to access the same services with ease, whether or not they want to prove their identity digitally. Following the horrific murder of 3 girls in Southport and the subsequent disorder, Keir Starmer addressed the public saying this:
"Wider deployment of facial recognition technology."
Whilst common in Russia and China, live facial recognition surveillance is now essentially banned in Europe. This AI surveillance turns members of the public into walking ID cards, is dangerously inaccurate, and has no explicit legal basis in the UK. Following Starmer's speech, we brought together nearly 30 rights and racial justice groups, urging the Prime Minister to rethink plans to expand live facial recognition. Authoritarian tech will not fix the country's complex societal challenges, but it will endanger our rights and freedoms. Should UK police forces expand the use of live facial recognition under his leadership, it would make our country an outlier in the democratic world. In recent months, the Met Police has astronomically increased live facial recognition snooping on the public, and it's still expanding. Meanwhile, the government is putting all our passport photos in a giant facial recognition database, and shops are putting live facial recognition cameras on doorways, checking shoppers' identities. We are now supporting the first legal action in Europe on behalf of innocent members of the public who are wrongly accused of being criminals following facial recognition alerts.
What started with 70 or so people quickly became hundreds. And as it went on, they weren't just using bricks and slabs of wall, but petrol bombs and burning wheelie bins.
If history teaches us anything, it is to protect our rights with more vigour, not less, when they are under threat. Yet Starmer's response notably included online censorship powers. There were calls to review and even beef up the Censorial Online Safety Act before the law has even been fully enforced. Meanwhile, Technology Secretary Peter Kyle has revived Whitehall's Counter-Disinformation Unit, now deceptively rebranded as the National Security Online Information Team, which was responsible for the secretive, politicised speech policing against Brits during the pandemic. How we diagnose big societal problems is important because with lazy explanations come lazy policies. The quick explanation of internet lies is a neat way to cover over the long-term breakdown in law and order, disintegrating social fabric and simmering racism in our country. And it comes with the very neat response of online censorship that benefits those in power, who increasingly show distrust towards free and open discussion and access to information online. Hours before taking to the stage to deliver his keynote speech at Labour conference, we got wind of the news that Keir Starmer's government plans to resurrect Conservative plans to spy on all of our bank accounts on the premise of dealing with welfare fraud and error. Everyone wants fraudulent uses of public money to be dealt with, and the government already has strong powers to check the bank statements of suspects. But to force banks to constantly spy on accounts without suspicion means that not only millions of disabled people and carers will be actively spied on, but the whole population's bank accounts will be caught up in a web of surveillance too. We will not accept the default criminalisation of those who are sick, disabled, carers, or those looking for work. That's why we'll be leading the fight against these plans and demanding that the Prime Minister drops these dangerous bank spying powers. When the previous government announced these measures, your actions made sure that they never even saw the light of day. We delivered your message to number 10 Downing Street, and weeks later, they were dropped. Now, we need to harbour the same collective response and stand up to this major expansion of government intrusion that could take away our financial privacy like never before, and also does away with the presumption of innocence. We need to build the greatest possible campaign we can to stop Starmer's revamped mass bank spying plans. We can only do this with your support. Please join us today and join the fight against these outrageous financial surveillance powers by heading to the link in the description. And if you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe to our channel, drop us a like, and write a comment underneath.